Hey, hi everyone. In today's video, we're going to cover, LlamaIndex, or I guess people call it LlamaIndex. It is one of the library that you can, use to connect your own private proprietary data to the, let's say, large language model, or I would say, to connect large language model to your own, proprietary data. So we have seen many videos with respect to, let's say, LangChain, and then we have also seen the Pinecone, the other vector DB, Chroma DB, but we never created video on, let's say, the Llama Index, right? So I thought of creating an end-to-end, some introductory video on the Llama Index. We will see what we're going to cover here, right? So we do use it, like I have used it for a couple of projects, and we are still exploring this particular framework. And I know the one of the co-founder personally, the Llama Index, right? So see what we're going to do here. So first thing, we're going to see, how do we create the Llama Index and how do we query it, right? So how do we make sure that, let's say you use some kind of a PDF document, and then you build an index, where you can ask some questions with respect to that, document. Then we talk about, how do we, save this index, load it somewhere else. Let's say you train it here and you want to use it on your server, EC2 machine, right? So you need to know how to save your index and then load it again, right? The other thing is that how do we customize the LLM, right? So by default, it uses OpenAI GPT-3 model, right? Takes DaVinci 003 model, right? What if you want to use GPT 3.5? What if you want to use GPT 4? So we're going to see how do we customize the LLM, right? The other thing is how do we customize the prompt? Since the basic use case is actually, you can get answers from the document, but what if you want to change some prompt, you want to give some different instruction? So that's what we will see, the customizing the prompt, right? And then we will also see, how do I customize the embedding? What if I want to use Hugging Face embedding, the open source embedding, right? So those are the couple of things that you always came across, when you are building some real projects. So that's what we're going to see. We're going to see each of this particular point, right? So let's start with, so the first thing, right? What document we're going to use, right? So I used to use the earlier videos, some sample documents. I think last video I used some page related text file, right? But then now I have some snippet of a book. The book is called, here. It's the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. So Naval Ravikant is, kind of one of the famous person on Twitter. He shares his philosophy about, wealth, happiness, and all those kinds of things. I think, I'm big, fan of him, and maybe I became a freelancer, right? Or a self-employed is somewhat, influenced by him actually. That's I would say. So what I'm going to take actually. So this book is like more than 200 pages, but I'm going to pick up its, first part, which is my favorite part, which is the, wealth, or building wealth, or the wealth creation, which is seems to be like a 90 kind of pages, right? So that's what I did. So I only pick, took the first 90 pages of this particular PDF, and then we will ask some questions, and see how it answers, right? So let's the first thing we want definitely the llama index, so we can install it using, let's say, pip install. We also require a pypdf, which is the dependency of the llama index, because we want to this crunch, I wouldn't say crunch, let's say we want to chunk this particular PDF file. The other thing is that, as I told you, that we can customize embedding, and I'm going to show how do we use Hugging Face embedding or a sentence transformer embedding, right? For that purpose we need this particular thing, right? So let's run this thing and let's install this all information. As it is mentioned here, so I given you a link here, right? Which is the installation of the setup link, which talks about how do we install all of these things. And then here it says that it is using a text Davinci 003, which is GPT-3 model by default, right? So this is where you can find it. I have put a link here. Now it is installed. So the since it is going to use OpenAI model, we want to make sure we have OpenAI key as a part of our environment variable, or you can simply import OpenAI and then assign as a OpenAI API key, just like what we do, right? Making whenever we use OpenAI to make any call, right? Next thing, let's create the index. The basic example is very, very simple actually. Creating index is very simple. So from the llama index, we require two things. One is a vector store index. So it is one of the index that, one of the kind of index that you can create. So in the LangChain, we saw, there is only one type of index, which is actually this vector store index, right? Where you take your, document, chunk it, and then store it in some vector store actually. and then you can retrieve those documents and pass to the LLM while generating or answer, right? So we're going to do the vector store index. We will see how vector store index looks because they have some good visual documentation. The other thing is directory reader or simple directory reader. So we can give this the directory address, and then it can read all the documents or the different kinds of documents what we have, right? So if you want to see what exactly the vector store index, so I put a this document link here, which talks about how different indexes work. It's their own document and good visual representation. So this is how vector store index looks like. So you can think of this as an vector store. Here each node, you can think of each chunk. So you have a big PDF, you might chunk into, let's say, 4,000 characters of each or 2,000 characters of each, right? So each node is actually one chunk, and that chunk, what you're storing vector. So you pass that particular text or a chunk through the embedding model. Just let's say either it is an OpenAI embedding or it could be a sentence transformer embedding, right? And then it gets stored here, this particular embedding. Then what happened during the query time? you know when you ask any query, it goes through the same embedding so that you get the query embedding. And then you check among all of these nodes or the chunks you have in your vector store. Let's say you want to select the top two chunk which matching with the query embedding, because those are also embedding, right? And then you select those top two thing and give it to the, let's say, to generate this response synthesis, which is where, let's say, you're going to take this user query, this two chunk you got from the vector store, and pass it to, let's say, LLM like GPT-3 or GPT 3.5 turbo, and then generate the answer. So this is what typically we have even used in the, let's say, the LangChain. But the good thing is that this has lot more to offer. The Llama index has a lot more to offer. You can see that there is something called list index. Then we have this one we just saw. Then we have tree index, and then you can see actually maybe the next video I will create where we talk about all those different kinds of indexes, and then maybe when we should use those indexes. But for now, the purpose of this tutorial is to actually show you exactly how, let's say, the LMI index works, right? Because the steps are almost same for no matter what index usually we're going to use. So let's go back to our thing. So what we want to do, I should have done this thing so that it would have created the index by this time. So what I'm giving here, so I'm giving this book you know directory here. Now what we got, okay, something issue with the OpenAI. We had it, right? I think it takes time or what. Let me try again. So we're going to load this simple directory reader, where we're going to give our directory address, which is book here, and then it's going to load the data. We're going to get the list of documents, actually, whatever the number of documents we have. And then we can create this vector store index from the documents. We pass our documents and eventually we got the index. And then that index can be used as a query engine so that you can ask some questions or the query it, right? Let's drag in and see whether, oh, we again see this opening, I think, right? Did you, but we do have key, right? Yes, we do have, we ran it. What if I on this also? Let's see if it works after this. Okay, seems to be it is running that stage where we are actually creating a vector store, or like, sorry, we are creating the index, from the documents that we just got from the directory reader. Maybe let it, okay, it's already good zoom, right? Okay. And then once we got the index, then we're going to use index as a query engine so that we can query. Okay, that's it, we created the index. Now let's ask some question. Now I'm asking, what is this text about? Just like not searching anything answer into it particularly, but just like an asking some overall or kind of a meta question, right? So let's see what we response we get. We are asking, what is this text about? Let's say what it says. Okay, this text is about dangerous of lusting after money and how it can occupy one's mind and lead to paranoia and fear. It also discusses how Naval Ravikant combined his vocation and avocation to make money in a way that felt like a play. Okay, yeah, maybe that could be. I didn't like the starting part anyway. Now let's say what is, who is this text about? Because we will be having name, right? The text is about Nawal Ravikant, right? So the good thing is that this I found the Llama Index particularly better than maybe the whatever the other option we have, is that it is very good to answer this kind of question, the overall questions, or kind of a meta questions on top of the question, and not you're searching for particular thing actually. Now let's say we're asking when, so it is saying 2020. Let's see. Do we, I think I have seen it. It is correct. Seems to be. Yeah, it seems to be this 2020. It could be the same thing what it is answering. Okay. So this is how, right? Just within how many lines? Like 5 6 lines of code actually, and then you literally have a you know some kind of a program where you can ask some questions with respect to some document. Now here it is a book. It could be anything. It could be some legal document, constitution, or let's say IPC penal code document. It could be anything that you can ask some question against it, right? So this is how you can create the index, and then you can actually query index, right? Very pretty simply, right? Now let's again one more overall question. So we want to list 5 important points from this particular book. Okay. It says, understand how wealth is created, find and build specific knowledge, play long term games with the long term people, take on accountability, and build or buy equity in business. This is pretty good actually, because this is what my understanding of this particular book is. So it is really good actually. Then let's see next what we are saying. What Naval says about wealth creation. Okay, because we had only that topic only. Now let's say what he says about it. Okay, Naval Ravikant says the wealth creation is a possible through ethical means. He suggests seeking wealth instead of money or status, and suggests that one should own equity in business in order to gain a financial freedom. He also suggests that one should give society what it wants but does not yet know how to get it. Okay, this is pretty good summary, and what he says actually, whatever the Naval says, right? So this is how we do. Now, next step, what we want to do is actually save and the load the index. What if now you want to take this particular index and deploy it on, let's say, Amazon EC2, VM, or somewhere else, right? You need to know how to save. So we can take the index, and then we can call a method called storage context dot persist. So it is going to persist. We need to give the folder name where you want to persist this index so that you can load it, right? So once it persists, we should see. Yeah, we saw this. There is a new folder came called Novel Index, and it has a lot of index store, vector store, graph store, whatever all this information. Now, how do we load this thing? Now we saved persist it using a storage context, right? So from the llama index we can import a storage context, and then there is a function or a module called load index from that storage. So we first initialize the storage context. Okay, there is a function called from default, and just we give where is the directory where we have saved our index, and then we can pass that context to this method which is load index from storage, and we should get the new index. And that new index we should be able to the same way the way we have used it, right? We use that index as a query engine and start asking the question with this new query engine, and you could see it is able to answer that the text is about Naval Ravikant. So this is how you could save and the load index, right? Now what about the customizing the LLM, right? We don't want to use, let's say, 003 GPT-03 or GPT-3. We want to use, let's say, different model, right? To do that, we could use something called the service context. Seems to be like something that you can pass some configuration, right, in the llama index. So we want two things. So from the llama we want LLM predictor, which is like a LLM that we're going to use, then the service context. But if you notice, the llama index, or I think it's only llama index, okay, it doesn't have its own LLM model wrapper or anything. So it is underlying, it is using the LangChain models, right? And again, LangChain is using, let's say, some other provider model like an OpenAI. So from LangChain we are more concerned about chat models because I want GPT 3.5 turbo. So we import the chat OpenAI. Then this LLM predictor takes one of the input as a LangChain model instance, which is we just created this chat OpenAI, right? Which can take the model name. So we are actually passing this LLM predictor class, this GPT 3.5. We got the LLM predictor, right? And then we create the service context with that LLM predictor. Now, when you create the index, right? from the document, you can pass that service context which has a configuration details about what LLM to use, right? Let's create. So now we are actually creating a new index called the custom LLM index. Okay, I think that index got created. Now we can ask this custom LLM index same question the way we have asked, right? So we can simply call it, right? So I'm not going to ask much other questions. You can try on your own document, ask something. I just wanted to show you how to do that thing. How do we import that LLM predictor class? Then we can pass a LangChain model instance to it, and then eventually that LLM predictor can be used with the service context and passed to the while creating the index from the document, right? Now let's check the custom prompt. What about you want to modify the prompt, whatever they are using? There will be some prompt, right? Since it is able to answer the question based on the document that you have provided, there will be a simple prompt at least, right? That, hey, based on this context, try to answer this particular query as truthfully as possible. This is what generic prompt most of the time we use. Let's say we want to customize this prompt with your own instruction, right? Here I could give a explicit instruction saying that, hey, this whole text is all about actually Naval Ravikant, what it does and what this book about, so that it will help model even answer better way actually, right? So let's see how we can do. So from Llama Index we import a prompt module, and then we can create some templates similar to the LangChain, which is nothing but a f string kind of thing, right? You have a big string, and then you have some placeholder. There is a placeholder for context, and there is, what extra thing I have added only in this prompt. I said this, hey, start with every answer you should start with the code word called, let's say, the AI demos. So AI demos is actually my one of my side project. Recently I started sharing on LinkedIn also, so you can go and check actually AI demos. So this is actually the website. Maybe you can go and check the YouTube also. So this actually coming from, so we have many videos on this channel recently we created, and we upload every day two videos where we create a video demo of, let's say, a recent AI tool. So you could see every day we have actually two videos coming here, and I guess we have one or two shorts also every day. So you can go and explore this thing and see what is like to use that particular tool, and if you find it interesting, then you can go and check that particular tool. So that's what we have like an AI demos. Okay, let me go back here. So I want every answer to start with the code word, let's say AI demos. Let me run this thing. So we declare the now this custom LLM index what we had, right? There we can pass our text QA template, the question answering template, as our template what we want, right? So the variable name is actually text QA template, right? And then we get the whatever the query engine we get. Let's see how we get the response now. Okay, you could see, right? While it is answering, it is using the starting word, which is AI demos, because we instructed it to do this thing, right? So this is how you can put your custom instruction in the prompt, your custom prompt, right? And you can, use it. So this is what instructions we have given to it. So after the customizing prompt, what next we want to do? We want to have our own custom embedding. So I think default it is using OpenAI embedding, but let's say now we want to use, let's say, the our own open source embedding, right? Again, just like if you look at when we use the custom model, that model was actually the LangChain model instance, right? Similarly, when you're going to use the custom embedding, it is actually the LangChain embedding instance, which is Hugging Face embedding to have our open source actually embedding, right? And then we have a wrapper for it. So from LlamaIndex we have a LangChain embedding wrapper, and then again the service context. I think whenever you want to give some different things other than the defaults and pass some configuration, that's where we actually use this service context. I think I had given link here that you can go and read more about what is service context, right? So once let's import actually Hugging Face embedding, and this whatever the wrapper classes we required from the or model required from the llama index. Then we create the instance of the LangChain embedding, where we can pass the Hugging Face embedding model instance, and then we can use this embedding you know pass by passing to the service context. So we create the service context object by saying that we want to use this particular embed model, and then while creating the index, similarly we're going to pass that same context. Now the whatever the index we got is actually using the this model, the sentence transformer embedding. Let's create it again. Okay, it's building the in. I think it's yeah. It started downloading the model that we want to use actually. Okay, now it started actually creating the index from the documents what we have using this particular embedding model. Maybe it takes some few seconds. Yeah, it finishes. Okay, let me clear this output. So eventually we got the new index using Hugging Face embedding. Now let's use that new index and ask this question. Okay, you might get bored. I'm asking the same question again and again. Maybe enough of this question. Let's say this question how we get, which is like list five important points from this book we have seen earlier with the OpenAI embedding. So we got this building wealth and being happy as skills that can be learned. The Almanac of Naval Ravikant is a collection of Naval's wisdom and experience from the last 10 years. This book provides insight into Naval's principle for building wealth and this thing, right? This book. Okay, so these five important points from this book, if you look at this, it is answering some kind of what this book contains, but it is not really actually summarizing points for us, which is I think the other was good, where I saw okay, I printed it somewhere, right? Where did we print? Yeah, here. Understand how wealth is created, find and build specific knowledge, play long term goal. This is like really good. Means this is what actually he says, right? These are the key points, right? This five points are more about what is in this book and overall like more of like a generic information. This is again, I think, uh, free to download. This you see, these are simply something which I don't think it's that good. Is it? What if I rerun again and let's see? Okay, seems to be the same answer, right? So I would prefer the other one actually. Now, what is the last? What novel says about the wealth creation? Okay, says that wealth creation is not one-time thing, but skill that needs to be learned. He suggests asking yourself what you are doing is authentic to you and all of these things. Okay, so this is how you could use. I think in this tutorial we covered pretty good things. That is what you need actually if you want to build some project or a product based on the llama index, right? What is it is all about, creating and the querying the index. How do we save and load it? How do we customize LLM prompt and embedding, right? And all of these things we have seen. There is much actually, right? For example, when we created the documents, right, what's happening under the hood? How do I control the chunking? We saw the node, but we never came across a node in this particular code, right? So these are some more underlying things that we can learn later actually. As I told you, there are even multiple indexes. There is even a whole section about how do we synthesize the answer actually, this part. So all interesting things are there, but this is pretty good actually to start with. Maybe I will cover another one or two videos covering the other topic, mostly the other indexes, the response synthesis, and maybe something about how do we control the chunking and all of these things, right? I hope you found this video useful. Let me know if you have any doubts, right? I will be sharing code, it will be linked in the description of the video. And as I suggest, please go and visit AI demos, subscribe it. You will find some interesting tools that if you like, you can go and explore. Thank you.